All right, picture this for a second. It's the early morning of January 24, 1966. You are 19,000 feet up, flying high above the freezing, jagged peaks of the Swiss and French Alps. You're sitting inside the cabin of Air India Flight 101, which is a Boeing 707 jet carrying passengers on what should be a totally routine journey to London. The sky outside the window is this blinding, disorienting white. Up in the cockpit, the pilots are actively communicating with air traffic control. And then, in just a fraction of a second, total silence. Welcome to today's Explainer, where we're going to unpack one of the most consequential and frankly mysterious aviation disasters of the 20th century. Okay, let's dive into this. In a single, baffling instant, all 117 souls on board that aircraft simply vanished into the mountains. Now, what usually follows an event like this is a tragic, yet fairly standard search and rescue operation, right? But this particular crash, it didn't just end lives. It fundamentally altered the entire geopolitical landscape of a nation. So let's trace this ill-fated route. The flight was commanded by Captain J.T. D'Souza, who was actually one of Air India's most experienced pilots, and it departed from Bombay. It made successful stops along the way, including one in Beirut, before heading toward its next stop in Geneva. But just moments after it disappeared from Geneva's radar, a nearby Italian pilot flying in the area was asked if he saw anything. His response was absolutely chilling. He reported seeing only a mysterious black cloud hovering near the mountains. Section 1. The Mont Blanc Crash, a Mountain of Secrets. At roughly 7 a.m. GMT, the Boeing 707 crashed directly into the border of France and Italy, right near the summit of Mont Blanc, which is the highest mountain in Western Europe. It went down about 3,000 feet below the mountain's peak. But what turned this from a tragic alpine accident into a massive, decades-long geopolitical mystery wasn't actually the crash itself. It was one very specific passenger sitting in that cabin. Section 2. India's Nuclear Dream, Homi Bhabha's Vision. That passenger was Homi J. Bhabha, universally known as the father of India's nuclear program. And listen, Bhabha wasn't just a scientist, the guy was an absolute visionary. He was a Cambridge-educated genius who had worked alongside legends like Niels Bohr at the famed Cavendish Laboratory. When he returned to India, he essentially built the country's entire modern scientific infrastructure from the ground up. He wasn't just using technology, he was literally creating the ecosystem for it to thrive. So the crucial point is this incredibly bold public claim Bhabha made. He brazenly announced that if the Indian government gave him the go-ahead, he could build a nuclear bomb in just 18 months. No way, right? Just imagine the shockwaves this sent across the globe in the mid-1960s. We're talking about the height of the Cold War, and this rapid timeline deeply terrified the global status quo. Let's move to and see how this builds, because Bhabha was absolutely relentless. In 1945, he founded the Tata Institute of Fundamental Research. By 1960, he had the Cyrus reactor active, producing weapons-grade material. And the geopolitical heat? It really turned up after the 1962 India-China War and China's own nuclear test in 1964. Finally, in December 1965, India's Prime Minister Lal Bahadur Shastri secretly gave Bhabha the green light to accelerate the nuclear weapons program. The dream was actually happening. Section 3. 2 deaths, 13 days, a geopolitical vacuum. When Flight 101 hit Mont Blanc, the aftermath was, well, it was eerily silent. The crash was so incredibly violent and the weather so deeply hostile that the freezing mountain effectively swallowed everything. Investigators found no bodies, no intact wreckage, and most importantly, no black box. The investigators were left completely blind. The mountain was keeping all of its secrets. And then, the staggering coincidence becomes clear. On January 11, 1966, Prime Minister Shastri died mysteriously of a reported heart attack while negotiating a peace treaty. Just 13 days later, on January 24th, Bhabha was killed on Flight 101 on his way to an international atomic energy meeting in Vienna. Think about that. The only 2 men who knew the exact, unwritten details of India's nuclear acceleration were dead within 2 weeks of each other, leaving a total, absolute vacuum in India's top-secret policy. Section 4. Conspiracy or tragic collision. Naturally, explosive theories emerged to explain this highly convenient timing. Let's look at the 2 major claims impartially. On one hand, you have a claim published by journalist Gregory Douglas alleging the CIA planted a bomb in the plane's cargo hold to prevent India from sparking a nuclear arms race. On the other hand, you have a theory championed by wreckage collector Daniel Roche, which claims Flight 101 actually had a mid-air collision with a secret Italian F-104G starfighter jet that was supposedly spying on French military installations. Now, what's really interesting about this information is how it holds up under actual scrutiny. Let's look at the counter-evidence. The CIA sabotage theory is entirely based on a supposed confession from a CIA officer to that journalist, Gregory Douglas. But historians later revealed Douglas is actually an alias for a guy named Peter Stahl, a man with a heavily documented history of forging fake historical documents. On the flip side, the mid-air collision theory relies on scattered military debris found decades later. Yet, a thorough search of Italian military archives shows absolutely zero records of any starfighter crashing near Mont Blanc on that specific date. Section 5. The official investigation. Moving past the dramatic conspiracies, the official March 1967 French Inquiry Commission report points to a deadly combination of mechanical and environmental failures. First, the plane's VOR system, which is a really crucial radio navigation tool that tells the pilot their exact position, failed shortly after leaving Beirut. Combine this broken navigation with whiteout conditions. If you don't know what that is, it's this terrifying optical illusion in the Alps where heavy snow blends seamlessly with the sky, making it literally impossible to see the mountain directly in front of you. The final nail in the coffin was a fatal miscommunication. At 7 a.m., Captain de Souza firmly believed he had already passed the mountain ridge, but the Geneva air traffic controller saw on radar that the plane actually hadn't. So the controller issued a warning over the radio saying, "You have approximately 5 miles remaining to Mont Blanc." In response to that absolutely critical warning, Captain de Souza simply replied, "Roger." Actually, scratch that. It wasn't just a simple acknowledgement, it was a tragic misunderstanding. Because of imprecise phrasing, the pilot misunderstood the controller's correction. He truly believed he had cleared the mountain peaks and that it was completely safe to begin his descent toward Geneva. And so the tragic irony of it all is realized. Without any need for a bomb in the cargo hold or a phantom fighter jet in the clouds, a simple, misunderstood radio call, combined with blinding whiteout conditions, caused the pilot to intentionally drop from 19,000 feet down to 15,500 feet. He flew his aircraft straight into the solid rock of Mont Blanc. Section 6. Homi Bhabha's lasting legacy. Despite the immense setback and the massive vacuum of leadership, India honored Bhabha's foundational work. They renamed his research facility the Bhabha Atomic Research Center. And you know what? The scientific infrastructure he built with his own hands proved incredibly resilient. The country kept the dream alive, eventually conducting its first successful nuclear test, Operation Smiling Buddha, in 1974, and fully weaponizing it by 1998. And this brilliantly illustrates the devastating delay his death caused. Bhabha was super confident he could deliver a bomb in just 1.5 years from that 1965 green light. Because of his untimely death, that exact goal took the nation 32 years to officially realize. Pushing an 18-month goal back by over 3 decades just proves how vital his individual brilliance was to the entire program. But we have to remember, Bhabha's legacy wasn't just about weapons. It was always about energy and self-reliance. Today, fueled by his early vision, India operates 25 nuclear reactors that contribute roughly 3% of the country's electricity to the grid. His dream of peaceful atomic energy, powering millions of homes, it remains a tangible, breathing reality today. So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a thought to reflect upon. History so often hinges on the absolute smallest of margins, doesn't it? A misunderstood word over a radio, a broken navigational gauge, a blinding snowstorm. If Air India Flight 101 had just maintained its altitude for a few more miles and safely cleared the Alps, Homi Bhabha would have landed in Geneva. How completely different would the global geopolitical landscape look today if India had become a fully nuclear-armed state in the 1960s? It's like a giant puzzle with missing pieces, a mystery of history that we will never truly be able to solve.